Cool beans. Well, welcome everybody to our third installment of the Quaranteam chats at Entreflow. We will be running these until the foreseeable future, hopefully not too long, on Tuesdays and Thursdays each week. Tuesdays will be a bit more of a finance focus, and Thursdays will be a bit more of an HR focus. So to begin, our agenda for today, we're going to go through some of the recent updates through the news and with the changes happening in our country, more from an HR perspective. We've got some top tips to share with you on how to survive the quarantining and your teams. Not to survive your teams, but to work effectively with your teams through this. We have a little session on working remotely, and we'll have a Q&A session. And just to reiterate what Bronwen said too, feel free to jump in at any point if you have any questions or comments. Just raise your hand at the bottom of your screen and we will get you unmuted to speak, or you can type your question in the chat box there. A couple of we've got a couple of us on the call today who will be sharing with you. So my name is Helina. I'm the CEO at Entreflow. I'm a CPA, CMA, and years of experience working as an analyst in HR and finance, and been with Entreflow for about 4 years. So bring a little bit of that HR flavor to the business. And next I'll pass it over to Bronwen to do a quick intro.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Bronwen. I'm the HR practice manager with Entreflow. I've been with the company for about 3 years, have experience working with small and medium-sized businesses, supporting them with their HR needs as well as recruiting for them. So it's been good. Pass it over to Dustin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dustin. I'm actually the director of sales over at PaymentEvolution. I've been with PaymentEvolution probably for about just shy of 3 years, and I'm hoping that we can bring some really great points to the table here as a featured guest with Entreflow.
Thank you for being with us today. We also have Colin Weston from Startup Canada, the Vancouver edition, visiting with us today too.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Helina, for hosting again. And yes, all of my HR knowledge you can fit into a thimble, so I'm not here to provide any enlightenment or expertise there, but of course to help amplify the signal and the message here as we've done today and will continue to do, to connect all the good things you're doing here with our community with Startup Vancouver and across the country with Startup Canada. Yeah.
Great stuff. And has Keith joined yet? Not sure yet.
Don't think so. No.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll wait to see if Keith can join. He's the CEO for Spring Activator, and he joined us on Tuesday. So perhaps he'll make a guest appearance today to share some of his insights from his area of expertise. Okay, great. Just a quick slide on Entreflow and who we are, what we do. We're basically professional goal crushers. We are a boutique firm of 18 business nerds who focus on marketing, strategy, and execution, recruitment and HR consulting. We do a lot of bookkeeping and financial management consulting, CFO work for our clients, a lot of software selection and implementation, and tax and compilation. You can see it's the bottom of the list because tax is not our main focus, but this is what we do. So we're here if you have any questions that might come up that are not related to the topic today, but in any of those 5 areas of nerddom. Okay, great stuff. So some news. I'm going to pass it over to Bronwen, and she's going to share with you some of the updates over the last week or so from an HR perspective.
Yeah, so there's just a couple things. So some of these updates have been, released in the past couple of days. Some of them have been over the past couple of weeks. Sorry, I'm just gonna grab my notes here really quickly. They disappeared on me. So one of the big ones for this week was Trudeau, who unveiled the $2,000 per month emergency response benefit. So this is available to those of that have, experienced job loss or due to companies having to close down, or due to illness, or due to having to look after somebody who is ill at this time. And it is also for anybody who's seen a cut due to kind of the COVID-19 situation that's happening. You know, this isn't quite available just yet. The expectation for this to be out on April 6th. There will be an online portal where you're able to kind of upload an application. They are saying, however, if you are already receiving EI benefits for regular and sickness related reasons, just to stay on those benefits and not to reapply for the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Yes, and then the other one that's come out is the BC government specifically, for those of us that are located in BC here, the BC government has introduced a $1,000 payment for those on EI, and that payment is to come out, they're kind of guessing in early May. That's going to be a one-time tax-free payment to just kind of help our BC residences here. So our great Canadian payroll systems have been working furiously to roll out, the wage subsidy report, wage subsidy support, so that, there was an announcement earlier about a support for Canadian companies to receive a little bit of a break on their payroll. So, we've received a lot of notifications about Canadian payroll companies that have put that in place. We'll get to Dustin later, and maybe he can give us a little bit more information on that one. And also,
if I can I just jump?
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, Bronwen, can I just jump in just to clarify what that one is about? So basically, they're giving a bit 10% relief on the payroll remittances, from what I've gathered. So the calculations obviously are a little bit of a bit messy, and there's some maximums there too. So highly recommend using an application like PaymentEvolution at this time if you don't have something in place, just to deal with the calculation piece there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dustin, do you want to share a little bit more about what you guys have been doing there, and how this is going to work for businesses, I guess, with the calculations in place, but also if there's any retro that needs to be worked out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the simple answer on our side is that the ability for businesses, if they qualify for this wage subsidy support, we have an in-app application feature, let's call it, in our application that allows them to obviously calculate everything properly when you run your payroll. And this is available on all of our upgraded plans, any of our, I would call it, it's something that's allowed for on all of our accounting bookkeepers / business plans as well. The one thing that is really important for people to understand is that for a self-serve application like PaymentEvolution, it's very difficult for us to qualify you for this tool. So I would suggest having a conversation with the Entreflow team, or with a payroll specialist or an accounting professional that's going to be helping you out to really find out and see if you qualify for those. Unfortunately, not everybody does, but we have it ingrained in our application already. We built the actual feature within 72 hours of being it being released to the public. So it's actually very quick. We were the first company in Canada, cloud payroll, to have it available. It was followed off by a couple of other providers. But again, it's available for people who, one, know that they're qualified and they enable it themselves, and it'll be there ongoingly until it needs to not be there anymore. And then there are a couple of specific bookkeeper to really tell you all that information, but there is definitely information that you should be aware of. From my understanding right now, the one thing that you should know is that corporations, and I believe it's under 15 million, Helina, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, of capital tax, I think that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, so not sole proprietors or independent contractors necessarily, or partnerships right now, right? So it's very specific, so get your information out. You just had a little guest over here. My little daughter came by and said hi. And she's, and so it's important for you guys to take a look at what you guys qualify for, so that you guys can really be informed. So I love these chats because it's probably going to give us a lot of that insight.
For sure. I think also too, you have to be a CCPC as well. So that means that from an ownership perspective, it has to be Canadian controlled professional corporation.
Great. We did have a question here from William about the application for wage subsidy. William, does that answer your question there? Just,
you don't need to apply. There's just I think there are pre-qualifying requirements. So I don't know how they're going to deal with that after the fact. There'll probably be a bit of a CRA audit to deal with any errors that were made along the way. And I'm assuming you're on your end, Dustin, you can't fully pre-qualify because you wouldn't be able to necessarily confirm if they're a CCPC or not, or what they're, if they're within the legal requirements there. So I think it's probably on an honor system for the time being, and then we'll probably the CRA will have a fun time cleaning up that mess.
Yeah. The biggest differentiator right now, the reason why we can't pre-qualify people and say, yes, you're qualified for this, is the amount of revenue that the company makes. So if we know that they're a corporation, it's still tough for us to be able to tell them if it's still accurate or not for them to qualify. The amount of revenue is the missing factor with PaymentEvolution, or with almost any payroll software, with the exception of some integrated ones with accounting softwares that could probably provide that for you. But from my understanding, they're not super ready yet either. So there's going to be some time for us to double check and do our due diligence, and validate our data and make sure that we can talk that have that conversation with the right professionals. It's not time for us to be scared to ask, or to be too proud to ask. We should be asking to get any help that we can.
Sure. Another question about subsidy for corporations with contract workers. So there are I think the $2,000 per month benefit does extend to self-employed individuals. So I think that's probably how they're expecting you to handle that piece. So that benefit is available to self-employed, and as well, I don't know if you mentioned this, Bronwen, but to parents who need to take care of their children as well and can't work. So I think that's how they'd manage it for the time being.
For sure.
Okay. To ROEs.
Okay, so the other point is that there are, for those who are having to go through layoffs or reducing hours for employees, there are ROE codes that are specific to the COVID crisis here, where you just need to ensure that you're using the right one for your employees, as they have different meanings behind them. There's ones for shortage of work, if you're just having to unfortunately lay off employees at this time, or reduce their hours. And then illness or injury. So if somebody's actually sick, that's different from, them having to leave. And then doing a leave of absence is different than if they're ill, due to the fact that the leave of absence is if they're uncomfortable working in their current working situation. So if they are having to come meeting, they are not totally comfortable with the exposure, there is the option to put them on a temporary leave of absence until the point where it is comfortable to come back into the office. So the ROE codes are available on the Government of Canada website on the ROE website page. And it's just if you have any questions on those, let us know, and we can actually I've got a question here. If you do ROEs are done manually and it is not possible to get through to the Service of Canada to get the forms. That is a great question. You can sign up still to do web ROE. It is a little bit of a process right now, just because you do have to do some verification steps. So if this is something that you haven't done to date, I would get onto the process as soon as you can here, so that you are able to do the electronic versions of the ROEs. If you are using an online payroll software as well, there are some that will provide you with the ROE that you can either upload directly to Web ROE, or some will file for you. But unfortunately, you can't get through to Service Canada at this time. I know I tried the other day, and it's they're extremely busy over there. So totally overloaded. It might be best just to start the Web ROE process and explain to your employees that at this time it might just be a little bit of a delay getting the ROE over. I know that they are working extremely fast over there to try and get everybody what they need.
I think
Anything
this
you
is
wanted
part of
to
the
add
reason
there?
why they rolled out the 2,000 per month benefit, because ROEs, and as well the start the EI process. So we're trying to kind of put a little bit of relief there, so that or make it a little bit easier for people to get access to funds, because otherwise they just haven't got the capacity to deal with the influx in requests right now.
Yeah.
Cool. And then the last point there.
Yeah, last one, that recent news that we have is the possible extension to temporary layoff period. We're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen there. It's on a provincial basis. So right now, the BC, it's a 13-week period that you can temporarily lay off employees. This is helpful at this time because it delays notice period pay, severance pay, and vacation pay, meaning that you can place your employees onto a temporary leave of or a temporary layoff, and you know, don't have to pay any separation or termination payments until the 13-week period, allowing a little bit of buffer time for things to get back up to normal a little bit here and bring everybody back on as soon as possible. So that's the recent news. I'm sorry, just one more question here from William. Can you register for ROEs online, completed by online? Yes, you can. If you go to the web ROE, if you just Google search web ROE, you can actually register via GC key, which is like a government code, and go through the process of registering your business. There's a couple, it asks for some basic like address information, payroll number, and then what happens is that you'll have to verify your identity with the government. That can also be completed online, and then they have to mail you a code. Unfortunately, that's the piece that takes generally the longest, is the receival of that access code. And then once you receive that access code, you can start completing your ROEs online at that point. Okay.
Okay, so our next session is on just some tips, what our team is doing right now. Moving on to more of a remote working topic. So we're very lucky at Entreflow because we're very well set up for remote working already. We're a partially remote team. We have an office where people go 2 to 3 days per week. And so we've got all the equipment and the structure and the tools in place. But we're still finding there's some challenges in this. So we thought we'd share some of the things that we're doing that we've already had in place, and other things that we've added in our structure to make this a smooth a process for everyone for the transition. So you have a daily scrum every day at 9 o'clock in the morning. Everyone jumps on a Google Meet, and we share what our top 3 things are for the day that we need to accomplish or work on, and any roadblocks or help that we are looking for from the rest of the team. So it gives everyone a chance to, call out for help if they need it, offer help if they've got time, and for the management team to be able to ensure everyone's kind of working on the right things. Obviously, right now, this is a super, super important meeting for us because priorities are changing daily depending on any crises that that people might be in. So it's a great way for us to just have a quick hunker every day. It doesn't take up a lot of time, and we can get a lot accomplished. We're also doing team lunches, so we just put a calendar invite in every day, and people can just jump on and eat together. Say hello, grab a coffee or whatever, just so that they feel like they've got some human connection aside from their cats, dogs, and partners. Also, we are doing Quaranteam happy hours. Last week we had 2 of them. This week we've got 1. So maybe this is signs of things getting better. I don't know. But, so we basically at 4 o'clock on Thursdays, or everyone's just jumping on a meet and having a drink. And we've got two rules to our Quaranteam happy hours. One of them is don't tell anybody about Quaranteam hours. We've obviously broken the rules there. The second rule about Quaranteam happy hour is only positive news are allowed to be shared. So it's not a time to get everyone together and share their anxiety so that they're leaving slightly tipsy and more anxious, but more for people to share some positive news. Hey, this is Seagull that's hanging out on my balcony all the time. We've been chatting, or I saw this news article about the canals in Venice clearing up, which is great, or CO2 is decreasing, whatever it might be, to just lighten people's moods. We have an end of the week team meeting, so we had ours today. Just a chance for everyone to check in, and we share, you know, our win for the week, our challenge for next week, and a high five or shout out to somebody else on the team. Share any business updates, and then one person, one victim each week will do a TED talk of some kind. So they basically get 10 minutes just to share, you know, something they're an expert in or they're interested in, and it just kind of gets us thinking about different things and keeping our collective intelligence. We have in our Slack channel a positive news channel where people can just pop in happy news as well. There's a lot of sharing of stock market crashing and other bad things that are happening in the world in other channels, but we have a positive news one to, you know, keep us focused on the good things that are happening out there. And then we've also been doing a lot more virtual working sessions. So people would normally just walk over to somebody in the office and sit down, hunker down, and talk through something. We're finding that's a little bit more tricky to manage through back and forth Slack messages or emails. And so people are just jumping on, you know, Meets or Zooms, whatever you guys use, but to basically just hash through things, be able to see each other's faces, and kind of clear up any communication issues. Obviously, with an remote environment, communication is one of the biggest challenges. So we really try to enforce a structure to make it easy for people to be successful in this new environment, rather than kind of waiting for, you know, everyone to kind of figure out their own ways of put that structure in place for everybody. For some of our project work too, we have weekly meetings so we can check in a team on that project. We have weekly meetings with our clients as well, just to kind of keep things going as much as possible through this time. Anybody have any things that they're doing that they'd like to share? I'd love to get some tips from other people too.
Yeah, we're doing some really fun stuff too. It's funny. We do a coffee break. We do a team coffee break for the entire office. Believe it or not, we're all on like a Zoom chat, and we're all just chilling out and kind of having a good time, kind of seeing everybody's face. We're so collaborative in a regular basis that it's become definitely a bit jarring to do the whole remote bit. I'm glad to say that everyone is completely remote. We're, you know, working away like normal, but I think the important part is to share something positive. The positive stuff is actually what's really, really, really game changing. Before, we could talk about almost anything at any point in time, but we're all dealing with, you know, our families. All of our little ones are here with us, you know, as we do these work events and do these chats. And I think it's important that people start realizing that those conversations with them and with the teammates, you got to take a little bit of time. You got to be a little bit more empathetic, because everyone's dealing with different aspects, you know, that are being juggled at the same time. I haven't spent this much time with my wife since we were dating, you know, because we're just with each other every single day now, and it's beautiful and it's still awesome. But you know, everyone starts to get a little bit of cabin fever. Everyone starts to be a little bit, you know, squirrely and anxious a little bit. But the great thing that's been happening for a lot of our teammates is that they have their family around them, and so they've been able to, you know, interact with their family more than they're used to, which is actually a really good positive for the most part, I would say, for most people, than a negative.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hey, cutie.
How about your teams, Colin? What are you guys? Do you have any changes, updates, new things you've rolled out at all?
Yeah, well, the start of Vancouver, of course, being volunteer-based and really events-based, I guess the short answer is I've stayed connected the best I can with the awesome volunteer team that we have. And right now, it's just a matter of figuring things out, just like you are doing here, just testing and experimenting, collaborating. But we're doing not only with yourselves and with Volition and some others in spring, and not only promoting other online events to create community, but figure that out over the next couple of weeks to try to unlock some value even more so, not only here locally, but also with the power of Startup Canada on a national level. And on that note, I would encourage everybody to, on that national level, to participate in our startup chats, which happen at 9 a.m. Pacific time every Wednesday. and
Cool.
Friday, always a different theme. And you can actually apply to actually be an expert panelist there, which helps raise the profile of what you're doing. I know, Helina, you've actually done that in the past, so you're very aware of what we've been doing there. It's just another great forum, and the participation on that is like crazy high, and in these crazy difficult times, even more so. So that's kind of a long-winded answer of we're still trying to figure things out. With that, as far as one of the kind of the many hats that I wear, not only with my business as a partner in our sport technology, sport entertainment space, we're moving forward with what we're delivering with our new product. I was just last night on with New Ventures BC with the webinar that we have on there. So we're also just keeping busy and looking at that as an opportunity with our team to actually move forward, even though our clients like Cineplex and PGA Tour events are obviously on hold right now, but they'll all come back. Hey, if those things don't come back and everything else won't come back, we've got bigger problems than just being able to gather for a fun event. So that'll be a matter of time. So also pivoting, reprioritizing also of what we do. It has been difficult also. I think, Helina, you know that we're going through some personal things here, family-wise here, that's been difficult also to layer on here. So the support of family and friends and events like this to connect are crucially important right now to continue to do this, and for everybody to know that we're all supported, we're not alone, and we'll all get through this together, and things will be different than they were even a week or so ago, and that's part of the human experience, and we'll kind of figure it out. And my hope is that humanity will grow stronger and be more empathetic at the end of this, that we won't go back to business as usual after X amount of time, that there will be this paradigm shift in the way that we relate to each other and we prioritize things. So that's my hope for humanity as we move forward.
Yeah, that's great. I've been seeing a lot of people sharing on social just about, you know, the real cool benefits that are coming out of this lockdown. And the opportunity that we have, you know, to rethink how we work through this time. And I think that there's been so much of a kick to the system that it's probably impossible for us to go back to the way things were before. You know? Cool. A couple of other things on the remote working side of things that you might not be thinking about. So Bronwen, I'll pass this over to you to bring in your HR hat to the conversation.
For sure, yeah. So we kind of were thinking about some items that maybe you haven't been thinking about, you know, with everything that's kind of going on. One of the top things that kind of comes to my mind right away is HR policies and procedures. So, you know, if you're a team that's not used to be working remotely and you are now making the shift to working remotely, you may want to rethink some of your policies and procedures. If you have a policy that's saying that you need to be in the office at 9 o'clock, might not be as relevant to the situation right now. You know, there's a little bit more flexibility potentially around your working hours, if depending on the situation that you're in. If you always had to be at the office at 9, maybe now you can shift that a little bit. So, you know, just taking a minute to review your policies and see if there's anything that maybe just doesn't make sense for virtual working anymore. And also making sure that you do have some in place that do make sense for virtual working, like how to handle conference calls, notifications that are coming up in the background, you know, communication timelines with clients or team members. So, is it a 24-hour turnaround, or you know, what kind of expectations do you have in place with the current state of the organization? It doesn't mean that you have to go and rewrite your whole entire policy manual or your employee handbook. It's maybe just a couple updates here and there, or a quick notification out to the team, where you're just resetting on those policies so that they're, you know, everybody's kind of on the same page for the current state of the organization. Another one is kind of crisis.
Can I jump in for a second, Bronwen? So one thing I've heard from a couple of our clients recently is to, you know, they might have employees who have, you know, like Dustin, kids running around in the background, you know, two parents working at home, trying to juggle getting some work done with the kids running around. And inevitably what happens is, you know, some kind of tag teaming of some kind, depending on how old your kids are. which can create an environment where you've got two parents essentially working all day, right? And not getting the rest that they need. That's the worst thing for parents right now, because, you know, we need to make sure that they're keeping healthy and keeping their immune systems up at this point in time, and not getting more tired and exhausted than they already are. And some of our clients have talked about rethinking the way that their expectations are for working hours, for more of a deliverable focus rather than an 8 hours of work done focus, so that people can work when it's more convenient or easy for them, but also to take the pressure off of, okay, you have to work 40 hours and then that means you've done your job, but more focused on, okay, here's what I need you to get done, and you just sort it out. And if that means, it's more convenient for you to, say, work in the evening or on a Saturday or whatever, because that's when you might have a little bit more relief or whatever, and you can tag team a bit easier, or whatever it might be, that in times like this, we have to have the trust of our teams that they're going to do the right thing, and that we can probably rethink how we might want to deal with those scenarios. Also too, from the policies and procedures perspective, I always think it's great just to raise, like, rather than just like slamming down a new policy to your team right now, who are some of them, everyone's going to deal with this situation differently, but you just certainly don't want to put the message out there that there's a trust issue, and that it might behoove teams to just get together and hash out, like, okay, how's everyone feeling about this, and how's everyone feeling about this, and coming up as a team with some ideas on structures that they want to, or policies that they want to put in place, get more rules of engagement for the team, so that the teams kind of come into that together to make sure that it's fair and equitable as possible for everyone.
Yeah.
My 2 cents.
Okay.
Sounds
good. And I just see that there's a message here in the chat about, the importance of recognizing the small business owners and kind of them being not having as many people to be able to talk to, due to the fact that, yes, absolutely, employees have each other to kind of lean on, but it's hard as the business owner to be able to lean on somebody who's maybe not necessarily an employee. So, yes, I totally appreciate you sharing that, and understand. And a portion, I think the point about the understanding the vulnerability, and that right now the companies are not a bottomless pit of money, that comes around that communication around crisis management. In my opinion, I think that there's a fine line between being open to to your employees about kind of what's going on in the organization, and without causing too much panic. So I think that that conversation, so that they do understand, as a business owner, this is what I'm going through, and being able to have potentially those conversations so that they're understanding, because it's very easy for people to become blind to what's going on around them. And it's very much so, oh, I'm in this moment of panic, I'm in this moment of crisis, but not realizing that everybody else is kind of on the same page as well. So, if you're able to have those conversations with talking to your staff, and have that open line of communication about, hey, maybe, May is potentially a 3-week or a 3 payday month, and having a conversation around, who might be able to help us out so that we can, maybe defer your payment or cut down a payroll payment, and just having that open communication with the employees. I think it's just, it's more, the employees appreciate it a lot. Anything you wanted to add there, Helina?
No, that's all clear. I think the communication is really key, and doing what you can to work with the team to come up with solutions will probably help to come up with the best solution.
Yeah, and
I think there's a lot of companies right now that are, that's right, especially in larger organizations, creating, crisis teams to actually figure out how to deal with things. I think it's really important to get employees on those teams as well, so it's not just management making a bunch of decisions and then filtering it down. People want to be involved and want to be in the know right now as much as possible. So I think it's as much as possible, get the town halls together and let people hash out ideas, rather than just, okay, we've got a team together, they're going to fix this situation, and then tell everyone what's going to happen without any proper input from the rest of the organization.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so just yeah, and you know, most people from what I've seen have been fairly empathetic and understanding to the situation, but if they feel as though there's a block between them and potentially the business owner or the HR team or the crisis team, it causes a little sense of panic for the employees, which could cause them to act out or
disengage.
Disengage a little bit from their work. So just trying to make everybody feel as though they're being heard and thought about, I think is just helps calm things down and brings everybody back to a level where they're able to see, you know, okay, this is what the business owner is going through. This is what the business is going through. How can I help and take them a step back from that panic stage? So, okay. The other point up there, that another thing that you may not be thinking about right now is just reviewing your employee contract. So there's no necessarily a one contract that's the same for everybody. So just review your templates, review your every employee contract prior to any changes to hours or layoffs, just because you want to make sure that you're not doing anything that's against the employee's contracts, and that if maybe you're using an old version and now you've kind of made updates throughout the years, that everybody's kind of, that's being followed, and it might be a good chance to make some updates to your contracts at this time. Employee engagement, like I've said, we kind of touched on this a little bit, just kind of checking in with your employees, seeing how they're doing, asking how things are going, what they could, you know, what's working for them, what's not working for them, and just trying to kind of make adjustments as you can. Obviously not looking to kind of change things completely here. Empowering your managers to have great meetings and team communications virtually. So that's just putting in different like new softwares in place. So, you know, the Zooms, the Meets, the Slack, something to be able to, you know, having some coaching sessions maybe with your managers who aren't as familiar with doing one-on-one meetings. There's, you know, great resources out there that talk about best ways to have one-on-one meetings and team meetings so that they are successful at this time. Performance management might be something that could be coming up for some people. If you're doing quarterly or semi-annually, or if you don't have your performance reviews at the same time as the calendar year. So maybe giving that some thought, making some preparation ideas prior to that kind of coming up here, and thinking about how you might be able to take forms online, how you might want to handle these team meetings. And, you know, prepare for performance management to be potentially done virtually for this round.
One thing that's come up in that area with some of our clients is on the performance side, you know, kind of two types of employees, you know, some that are, well, maybe three, okay. But you know, okay, we're hearing some issues coming up where people are either working more hours than they should be just because they've got nothing to distract them, or, you know, it gets to 7 o'clock at night, they're starving and they're wondering why they're feeling weird, and they're like, oh, I've been working so much, I didn't even realize it was 7 o'clock already, and they're not getting enough rest and brain break for the day. And then also other clients saying that some of their employees are, you know, not focused, they're distracted, they're not getting their work done. You know, I had a client whose employees just didn't show up to work anymore. There was no communication, you know, so some, you know, people deal with crisis differently. Everything is totally okay. It's all human. But on the performance side, there needs to be some sort of clear expectations set with people, so that, and structures in place for them to reach out if they're really struggling, so that the performance piece is kind of managed, as it were. I mean, you can't really fault somebody for, you know, the first couple of days of being at home, working remotely, not being super effective, right? Like, or if they're having a really hard time getting like something, you know, a project out the door or what have you. Like, this is a different kind of time. On our team, we had a bunch of new people start, so these poor people have been thrown into onboarding at Entreflow plus now whole new working environment. So you know, you have to remember kind of where everybody came from as well when they were coming into this crisis here. So the best thing to do is just to have an open communication about it. Okay, so here's what my expectations are during this time. What are your expectations, and how can we work together to make sure that everyone's clear and on the same page? You know, if you're having a really bad day, what do we do? You know, and what are the kind of rules that we're going to work together or to live into together in this new environment, and kind of reshift what success looks like. And because we have to, you know, the empathy piece, empathy is like super big right now. Well, it's super big all the time, but it's really important to keep in mind that everyone's going to have a different headspace every minute, depending on what's happened and what news they've read and blah, blah, blah. So that's going to affect performance.
If I can add something a little bit into
please.
that. You know, so here's the thing. So being a director over at PaymentEvolution, I don't consider myself like the average worker. I'm not a 9 to 5er myself. I work pretty, you know, weird hours, and I don't get a lot of sleep. And for some reason, this past or 2 weeks, it's been 2 weeks now. I forgot to buy some smokes, and I just haven't gone to buy any, you know, in the last 2 weeks. And so I had decided to not continue smoking. And I remember having one of my leadership team, you know, we were in an executive meeting, and he said something to the effect of, "Hey, Dustin, are you okay?" And I was like, I can't. It's tough to focus right now. And then, you know, a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, I've quit smoking. Not the ideal time to do it. I don't recommend it, but it's going to happen. Even the smart,
your poor wife.
Yeah, smart people are going to make some silly decisions sometimes. And you know, I did it because I actually want to be around for a long time for my kids. And so, you know, there's a positive reason why to do it, and to kind of go through it. But we're in a scenario where, you know, some weird decisions are going to happen, and you're going to need to be a little bit flexible so that you can, you know, get that karma back, per se. So, you know, we're trying our best to have those crucial conversations, because the truth is you can really have conversation one of three ways. You can have a great conversation, you can have a not so great conversation, or you can not have it. And if you really think about things, you know, that's the only way to do it, is to really have a great conversation, you know, and kind of set the expectations properly, and set your expectations as well.
For sure. Okay. We're just looking at time. I've got about 15 minutes left here, and I do want to leave some time for some questions at the end. So what I'm going to do, Helina, can we move on to the next slide here? Yep.
Oh. Keeping the culture strong. Here we go. Okay. So some top tips to keep everyone happy. I think humor, laughter, fun is going to be what's going to get us through this. Okay. So it's all about the fun factor at this point in time. So continue to do the things that your team loves to do. So that's why we're still doing our happy hours. We've got the team lunches in place. We're doing the town halls. Meetings. Remind your team what the goals are frequently. So, you know, make sure everyone's clear about what they're supposed to be working on, just like normal. Keep doing your one-on-ones. Those one-on-ones are super important right now. If you don't have the one-on-ones in place, put them in place. You need to have a chance for people to feel that it's okay for them to share what's going on for them. And don't forget to ask the question, how's everyone doing? Like, we were in the middle of a meeting last week, and everyone kind of was looking a little bit flustered, and I just kind of stopped and said, how are you guys doing? And they're all just like, not good, not good. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's get, you know, we need to just put the whole meeting on pause, because we're not going to get anywhere if everyone's panicking. So, you know, just having that time to share and get things off their chest and clear, have those clearings at the start of a meeting. You know, how's everyone doing? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. Just a checkpoint is really important right now. Keep lines of communication open. So, you know, whatever it may be, just make sure everyone's clear about how they can get a hold of you right away if they need to, or if it's something that they need by the end of the day, how to get a hold of you. We've enforced cameras on for conference calls. It's just really nice to be able to see people's facial expressions, and the interesting hair growth for some of the men as well, because we don't have barbers that they can access. So everyone's getting a little bit frizzy. It's all good. But it's human, right?
Everybody's going to copy my look now.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's going for the Colin.
Right. Or else it's the razor, or else it's the number 1 or the number 2. It's just zip, off
Yeah.
and go. It's one or the other. There's no in between anymore.
I'm really impressed with some people who've managed to do the buzz like on the sides and keep the top long, like all by themselves. I'm like, how did you do that? Yeah, totally.
YouTube.
It, Dustin? Well done.
Yeah. I had a beard just a moment ago, actually, and then this morning I had to take it off. My kids were like, "Papa, is that you?"
You're shaving and you're not smoking. Something's wrong here. Slow down. Whole new Dustin. And then have a place for the team to be able to have fun and be silly, right? So just that's why we've got the happy hour. We've got the Slack channels move around. We've got a random one or whatever you do, just to make it possible for people to kind of have a bit of a laugh. Okay, some tools, because we like to talk about nerdy apps. So now's an interesting time. Some people are really busy and some people are not so busy. And if you're on the not so busy camp, now's a time to get your SHIT together with some things that you haven't had a chance to do, okay? So, if you've always wanted to have a proper HRIS in place to make sure that you've got an easy way to manage vacation requests and pay stubs and policies and procedures and everything else, performance and what have you, then here's some great HRISs that we've implemented. They're all great. And we're here to help if you need some help with them as well. But no, it's good to have in place for HR side of things. And then some virtual tools just to help with communication and management of the team. We use Slack, as we've mentioned. We use Google Meet. Zoom's are great. We use an app called Loom as well, which is great for video recording. So if you have a scenario where maybe you have a meeting and not everybody can make it, you could just Loom it really quickly. If you're not, you can also do this through Zoom and Meet. But having the opportunity to just record it and send it to somebody so they can get that for later is great. For the working sessions, because we've got a bunch of new people on the team, they can Loom the working session so that if the person learning wants to go back and watch a section, if they weren't quite clear, they can go and do that rather than bugging their buddy again. Or we've been using Loom with our clients a lot. So even our clients are sending us Loom videos too. Like, hey, I was just looking at this number on the report and I'm not quite sure. I was looking at this and I think that maybe we should try to adjust this in the forecast, blah, 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 so that we don't necessarily have to have a meeting set to go get some cool information back and forth to each other. We can just send each other Loom videos, and it's free to use. So I highly recommend checking it out. And then also we use an application called ClickUp. It's kind of similar to Asana. If you're familiar with Asana, it's basically a task management or project management software. And some really good features in there for us to kind of manage all of our workload. And it's become very important in recent days, just with our shifting priorities with crisis management. So, it makes it easy for us to, make sure we're on top of all our tasks and the timing and who's doing what. And also we have in there some wikis that we put together too, on different processes and top features and whatnot with certain applications. Any others that you guys think we should add to the list here?
I got one. I know that a lot of people usually subscribe to like a Microsoft 365 subscription. For the enterprise level or for the business levels, they include Teams, which is really great, which is a comparative to Slack, let's say, and it usually comes included into the subscription. So it could be a really great way to leverage it if you guys happen to have a lot of those subscriptions for your teammates. That might be something you guys can start to use. It's super easy to implement. It's via email, and then you guys can interact with everybody via direct messaging type of scenario, and it's actually quite fun.
Yeah, awesome. And you've got Skype in there now too, business version of Skype. Can't remember what they called it, which is similar to.
Yep. Yeah, Skype for Business. You're right.
Skype for Business. Okay, cool. Awesome. Quick tips for employees. Take breaks, plan your day. Get natural light, have your coffee dates, go for a walk if you're allowed, or work out at home. Lots of great new things that people are throwing out there for YouTube channels of personal training sessions and yoga classes and all that sort of junk. So you can basically learn how to do anything for free right now. It's amazing, and limit your news exposure. Keep positive. Dustin, we had a slide for you here in case you wanted to throw in your thoughts.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. So I think one of our attendees mentioned it, something that is kind of right on the money right now. A lot of the times, many businesses and many vendors in general are providing a lot of great help, and they're thinking of the small business owner right now. You know, a lot of the larger businesses that are doing really well, they're going to continue doing well, so that's awesome. But the ones that are not doing so hot and have to maybe lay off some of their team. You know, we're forgetting a little bit more about the accounting professionals, and also the people who serve them on top of that, kind of look like the middleman a little bit from vendor to the client and the user client. I want to remind people that we're all human, right? Although we're getting a lot of things for free, there are some things that you probably won't see that are available for free, you know, even though a lot of us are providing handouts in the ways that we can, so we can help. Many of us, our mission is to, provide a lot of help for that small business owner, medium-sized business owner, whatever it may be. But there's businesses out there too that need the help as much as possible. So do what you can to help in your community. It's as you mentioned, empathy is kind of like, it's always been a big thing, but a lot of people, it's kind of been a buzzword for the last little bit. And I think it's important that people realize that empathy doesn't mean that we're okay with the misery or the bad things that are happening. It just means that we can understand from an intellectual level, not just from an emotional level. About that. So my only thoughts are, we want to help everyone out there that we can. We're going to do the best that we can for everybody, and I encourage everybody else to do the same thing, so that no one's left behind. The reality is, as you know, is that it's a bit of a tough world, and for our entrepreneurs that are on the line, like they're without, give you a little solace. There was no guarantee in becoming an entrepreneur that everything was going to go fantastic. But I think it's important that you guys realize that you guys are when people talk about either fighting or flighting a conversation or an issue, we're the fighters, and we're going to keep fighting till, we can keep going till we can. And so I encourage you guys to keep it up, because that's what's going to get us to the success levels that we want, and back to normal, not stopping or not doing not anything. That's not going to help us necessarily. I think really the action is really going to help us towards making some real differences in the coming weeks and months and years after this blows over.
Great. Thanks, Dustin.
Got a couple minutes for some Q&A.
So what I'll do is I'm just going to open up the lines here to everybody that's on for our attendees. What you may have to do is unmute yourself once I have allowed you to kind of start asking questions. So just bear with me for 2 seconds here. I'm going to start, I think as of right now, looks as though most people are muted. Okay, anybody have any questions?
We'll take some comments and some suggestions as well.
Yeah.
I'll make one, just kind of expanding on all the good things that Dustin had put out there as far as connecting with people. I urge everybody out there at 7 p.m. every single night to go out on your front step of your house, on the balcony of your apartment or your condo, and just cheer and applaud, bang a pot, and thank all of the healthcare workers, all those people that are putting themselves out there to help get us through this. It's something that we're doing in the neighborhood now. It's a bit of a moment of levity and celebration and thanks and gratitude. And so if you're not doing that yet, I encourage everybody to start doing that tonight and every night.
For sure. An excuse to get some pent-up cabin fever out as well. Any questions or suggestions from the lines? One thing that came to mind for me, Dustin, in your with what you shared, is the I learned, I can't remember, it must have been at like a summer camp or something like this when I was in high school, the difference between sympathy and empathy. Hello, buddy. Sympathy is feeling sorry for somebody, and empathy is putting yourself in their shoes and feeling what they could be feeling. And so people throw the word empathy around a lot, but not necessarily practice empathy, they practice sympathy. So the key thing there is to really like imagine what it would be like in their situation and try to feel what they are feeling. And from that perspective, you'll be able to really have a clear understanding of how to help.
Sure.
Any last closing thoughts? Jokes? I got a really good joke. Okay, so I got into a fight with 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. The odds were against me. But wait, there's more. 5 was the mean one. Time to get even.
Wow. Leave it to the CPA to have those types of jokes.
Wow. Has Paul Broussard been coaching you on his dad jokes? Because those are groaners. That is right up there.
That was a 3-part groaner. I just love it.
That is like black belt quality there. Amazing.
All right.
Well, on that horrible note,
if there's if anybody has any other more questions that they would like to ask, you can reach out to Helina or Ian. We also have for Entreflow an hr@entreflow.com email address. If you do have any questions that you wanted to ask, we can always try and support as best we can there. We thank everybody for coming out today, for our panelists and for our attendees. Anything else?
Yeah, just a huge thanks to everyone. The whole point of these is really just to get community together, put our heads together and see what we can do to offer suggestions and solutions and help to each other. The more we get together to support each other, the better we're all going to be. So if you've enjoyed this, please come back again. Please share with other people. We'll be doing it every Tuesday and Thursday, and to the foreseeable future. Tuesday is more of a finance focus. Thursday is more of an HR focus. And if you have any burning questions that you'd like us to discuss, please send it ahead of time. We'll continue to have special guests and join us too, so that we can get some more collective intelligence going around here. And we'll get the recording up on social as well. So feel free to pass that around to anyone that might be of value to you. And I just thank you everyone so much for joining us, and to our panelists for jumping on with us and sharing your amazing insight. And have a lovely, healthy, fabulous rest of your day.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.